NBA players are known not only for their names and their on-court abilities, but also for their nicknames.
Great ball rotation, Middleton. Giannis downhill, slams it home!
Having a good nickname is part of good branding. And let's be honest, the coolest players always have the coolest nicknames. So with that, let's look at how some of the most iconic NBA nicknames were born. 10. Kevin Garnett, the Big Ticket. When Kevin Garnett first entered the league in 1995 as a prep-to-pro talent, he was called the Kid. He was just a teenager who became the first NBA player in a long time to come straight out of high school. But as this kid grew into his body and developed into a legit all-star, it was clear that he needed a new nickname. Of course, he wasn't just an all-star, but an all-NBA player and a perennial MVP candidate.
Anticipation gotta be bright. He's got KG trailing.
Thanks to his combination of offense, defense, and on-court intensity. So because of his ability to lead the Minnesota Timberwolves, a historically bad team, into the playoffs on a regular basis, he earned the nickname the Big Ticket, which is a reference to how he was the only reason why his team was contending every season. But no one knows who coined this nickname, although some people claim that Kevin Harlan, the current voice of the NBA, was the one who started calling Garnett this nickname. Harlan spent 9 seasons as the play-by-play announcer for the Timberwolves, so it's very likely that he was the one responsible for turning the Kid into the Big Ticket. 9. Tim Duncan, the Big Fundamental. If you're looking for a player who doesn't do a lot of flashy things but always gets the job done, Tim Duncan is your man. He simply knows how to win games in the most fundamentally sound way, using great footwork, hook shots, banking jump shots, and top-tier IQ on both ends of the floor. Defenders have nightmares guarding him because he always knows how to score without doing too much. Shaquille O'Neal, known for giving players nicknames, was the one who gave Duncan the nickname the Big Fundamental. While it suggests that his game is boring and uninspiring, Duncan's fundamentals got the job done for him and the San Antonio Spurs on his way to 2 MVPs and 5 championships.
Biggest lead, margin of 6 for San Antonio. With the stuff.
Shaq wasn't making fun of him for that nickname. Instead, he respected Duncan for what he could do as arguably the most fundamentally sound big man the league has ever seen. Of course, he wasn't on highlight reels or commercials on a regular basis, but Timmy still has one of the greatest careers in NBA history because of his mastery of the fundamentals of the sport. 8. Shaquille O'Neal, the Big Diesel. Speaking of Shaquille O'Neal, the big guy probably has the most nicknames in NBA history. It doesn't matter if you call him Superman, Shaq Attack, Steel, the Big Aristotle, the Big Cactus, or Shaq Daddy, because he would always give you 30 points and 15 rebounds on a regular basis simply by being big and unstoppable inside the paint. The guy commanded double or triple teams because of his combination of size, athleticism, and skill. Of course, there's another nickname that's perfect for that style. Shaq also called himself the Big Diesel.
Celtics got numbers now the other way. Throwing it up for Shaq, and he one-hands.
And there's a very good reason for that nickname. He's a big and strong dude who comes at you with explosive power, much like a truck running on a diesel engine. Of course, he's proven himself as powerful and enduring as a diesel engine by winning 4 championships and becoming one of the greatest centers to ever play. To this day, Diesel is still regarded as the most dominant player to ever set foot on a basketball court because of his imposing presence. 7. George Gervin, the Iceman. George Gervin is one of the most underrated players in the history of the sport because his name is often forgotten when compared to the players of the more recent generations. However, he was a dominant scorer during his days with the ABA and the NBA, and it was after the merger of the 2 basketball leagues that Gervin became a household name in basketball, especially with his ability to put the ball through the hoop in a graceful and efficient way.
Silas pulling up for the jump shot. Tough shot. Can't get it to go, but George Gervin.
When you look at the highlights of this man, you can see just how smooth and calm he is at scoring the ball. His go-to move was the finger roll, which he finished better than everyone else. The calmness in his style of play as a member of the San Antonio Spurs earned him the nickname the Iceman because he always stayed cool regardless of whatever defense he saw in front of him. But under that cool demeanor was a cold-blooded assassin who scored his way to 4 scoring championships. And as an added bonus info, the Iceman actually played with Michael Jordan in his final year in the NBA during the 1985-86 season. 6. Pete Maravich, Pistol Pete. Let's go with another 70s player today's generation might not be too familiar with. We're talking about Pete Maravich, the greatest scorer in NCAA history. He made a name for himself in college as LSU's sole source of offense, especially because he was playing under his dad. Maravich averaged around 44 points in college and had a college career scoring record that no other man could probably match. Pete, of course, took his high-scoring brilliance and penchant for flair to the NBA, where he became a household name.
And a 2-on-1 break. Maravich, let's see what he'll do.
Maravich brought style to the league by using unique moves people in the 70s had never seen before. He was doing behind-the-back dribbles, no-look passes, and crazy trick layups that may be normal today, but were witchcraft during his era. Of course, he was also famous for having one of the coldest nicknames of all time, Pistol Pete. He got his unique nickname early in life when people noticed that he preferred shooting from his waist, kind of like taking a pistol out of its holster. The nickname also embodied his playing style because he loved letting those bullets fly when shooting the ball. Though he never won any meaningful awards and was never a champion, Pistol Pete is widely regarded as a trailblazer of today's run-and-gun era of guards and shooters. 5. Vince Carter, Air Canada. The late 90s and early 2000s were a weird time in NBA history because the league was constantly looking for the next coming of Michael Jordan, hoping that someone who possessed the same athletic abilities could usher in a new generation. Vince Carter was one of the candidates for that role, not only because he played for the same college as MJ, but also because he was already one of the best athletes in the country when he first got to the league as a member of the Toronto Raptors.
First round for Vince Carter.
As a high-flying wing with the ability to dunk over any defender, it all made sense why he was called Air Canada, which was also the name of one of Canada's airlines. It was the perfect nickname for the man who put the Toronto Raptors on the map. While Carter didn't stay too long with the Raptors, a lot of people say his best years were when he was a Raptor. And let's not forget that Air Canada's high-flying ways helped make basketball so much bigger in Canada, as the sport is now incredibly popular in the country. 4. Clyde Drexler, the Glide. Speaking of high-flying wings, we can never forget Clyde Drexler, the man who entered the league with pogo sticks in his legs, but with the grace of a butterfly when he was soaring in the air. Had it not been for Michael Jordan, Drexler would have been the greatest wing in the late 80s and early 90s, especially because he could do almost everything that his airness could do.
2-on-1 break. Drexler. There's the glide.
He dunked on defenders, soared through the air, and had some of the most memorable mid-air acrobatics. Drexler could also create buckets at a high rate, averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and more than 5 assists throughout his career as a superstar wing. But unlike Jordan's more explosive leaping ability, Drexler looked like he was floating through the air when soaring to the basket. That's why he earned the nickname the Glide, as it looked like he was gliding like a kite when going for dunks and acrobatic layups. Clyde the Glide made a career out of powerful dunks and high-scoring games during his peak. He didn't have the same success that MJ achieved, but he did win a championship in 1995 when he reunited with his former college teammate Hakeem Olajuwon in Houston. 3. Kyrie Irving, Uncle Drew. Kyrie Irving quickly became a cultural phenomenon when he entered the league. Even in high school, he was already catching the attention of people all over the country because of his sick ball handling skills. The guy was reinventing what it means to be a ball handler because he was doing dribble moves that people thought were impossible.
Using the Drummond screen. Irving!
Pepsi, which was one of Irving's sponsors at the time, quickly pounced on the situation and made a series of commercials featuring the point guard's handles. Irving would wear prosthetics to look like a much older man. He challenged people in pickup games and then demolished them with his dribbling skills and finishing ability, all while surprising spectators with what an old man could do. Named Uncle Drew, this trend became a nationwide sensation as Irving adopted the nickname. The Drew part comes from his real-life second name, which is Andrew. Uncle Drew became so popular that a feature film involving the character was released in 2018. 2. David Robinson, the Admiral. Before there was Shaquille O'Neal and Dwight Howard, there was David Robinson, a physical specimen so imposing that he commanded respect the moment he entered the court. At 7'1" and with shoulders that looked like cannonballs, Robinson dominated the league on his way to multiple individual awards and an MVP.
Great cut by Anderson. David
He could give you 29 points and 12 rebounds on a regular basis, especially during his peak years with the San Antonio Spurs. However, Robinson entered the league as an older rookie after spending years serving the country as a member of the Naval Forces as part of his mandatory duty when he went to the Navy for college. But when he entered the league, he was already a fearsome presence in the paint because of his intimidating stature. His teammates quickly nicknamed him the Admiral, which was a reference to his time with the Naval Academy and the Navy. But he was never an admiral with the Navy. Instead, he was actually an engineer during his mandatory service years. But getting called the Admiral is so much better than getting called the Engineer. 1. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek Freak. Giannis Antetokounmpo will go down in history as one of the greatest players of all time and could give Tim Duncan a run for his money as the GOAT power forward. But his story is a real rags-to-riches tale that saw him peddling trinkets on the streets of Greece as a young teenager growing up in a poor family. It wasn't until he found basketball that he had a true direction in life. While he started out as a raw prospect, he had potential and a ton of physical talents because he was tall, mobile, and long. When the Milwaukee Bucks drafted him at 18 years old as a project player, Giannis quickly showcased his freakish proportions. He was barely 6'9" when he got drafted, but he grew to 6'11" in less than 2 years.
Finding Giannis!
On top of that, he impressed people with his 7'3" wingspan and incredibly long legs that allowed him to cover the length of the court and dunk the ball in just 3 dribbles. And because people struggled to pronounce his name when he first got to the NBA, he was nicknamed the Greek Freak, a reference to his home country and freakish proportions. While the nickname may sound demeaning, Giannis loves it because it perfectly represents his playing style as a freakishly long, athletic, and mobile player. He even uses freak as part of his branding with numerous companies, including his signature line with Nike.